Right, welcome to the next lesson. In today's lesson, we will look at division of decimals. Now, after today's lesson, you should be able to divide decimals up to 2 decimal places again by a 1-digit whole number. So please take note, you are going to divide decimals by only a 1-digit whole number, nothing more. And you will also learn to divide a whole number by a whole number. Okay, so we will learn how to divide whole numbers by another whole number and give your answer not as a fraction this time but as a decimal place, okay, in decimal form. Now before we start, let's look at the numbers in terms of tenth and hundredth. Okay, if I want you to take 3/10, 5/100 and divide by 7, it's going to be a little bit difficult because this is 3/10, this is 5/100. It's easier if I have everything in terms of hundredth. So the first thing you need to recall or remember is that 1/10 is equal to 10/100. Okay, so this is something important that you should remember. 1/10 is equal to 10/100. So if I have 3/10 here, I can actually convert this into 30/100. So 30 plus 5 is actually 35/100. So 35 divided by 7, I will get 5. And 5/100 is actually 0.05. So 3/10, 5/100 divided by 7 is 0.05. So the key idea is to convert tenth to hundredths. Alright, and then I divide. So I need to group them into one common group. Okay? So now let's take a look at how we do the long division method. So if I have 0.69 divided by 3, so I'm going to do long division. So as usual, this will go into under my umbrella. Okay? So 0.69 divide by 3. Okay, 0.69 divided by 3. So this is exactly the same concept as my whole number. So I put a little multiplication sign there to remind me. Okay, so as usual, for division, you remember we should start with the one nearest to the divisor. Okay, we will start from the left, we move down to the right. So let's start. 0 divided by 3 is 0. Okay, so 0 times 3 is 0, nothing happens. So now, let's take a look at the next position. Now, again, remember, decimal points must line up in a row. So because I have a decimal point here, I must have my decimal point here. Decimals always in a straight line. So next, I have 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Because 2 times 3 is 6. I subtract, I'm getting a 0. Next step, pull down the 9. 9 divided by 3 is 3. Another way of looking at it, 3 times 3 will give me 9. Subtract, and I'm left with 0. If I got nothing else here, I end my division and that is my answer. So 0.69 divided by 3 is equal to 0.23. Okay, so if you notice, the way that we divide is exactly the same as how we divide a whole number. The only thing is you need to remember to line up your decimal points. That's all you need to remember. Okay, let's look at this. Now this is a little bit different, but the method is still the same. 0.8 divide by 5. Okay, I put a little multiplication sign there to remind me. So let's start. 0 divided by 5 is 0. Okay. Then I move on to the next place. 8 divided by 5. I can't divide it exactly. So I need to ask myself, what times 5 will give me 8 or closest to 8 but not more than 8? So I know that 1 times 5 will give me 5. I minus off and that will give me 3. Am I forgetting something? I think I am. Decimal point. Where should I put it? Yes, straight line, right on top. Okay, so decimal points must always line up. Now I have this 3 here, and when it comes to decimals, there's no such thing as remainder. Okay, we need to keep solving until this becomes 0. So, but I have no more digits here. So what do I fill up this place here with? Yes, 0. Okay, so you recall that for decimals, I can have as many zeros at the back and it will not change my value. So this is still 0.8, no matter how many zeros I have behind. So now I'm going to pull down this 0. So I have 30 now. 30 divided by 5 is 6. 6 times 5, 30. Subtract, I get 0. So I only stop when I have 0 at the end. So 0.8 is equal, 0.8 divided by 5 is equal to 0.16. Okay, so the only thing you need to take note is I can start adding zeros at the back for decimals. The other thing is your decimals must be in a straight line. Okay, now let's explore how we do whole number divide by whole number. Well, in the past, you normally 5 divided by 8, it will be 5 over 8. Okay, so this is what we've learned in fractions. Alright, but today we are not going to look at this. We are going to look at how we do it in decimals. So let's just follow the same long division method. 5 divided by 8. Okay, so let's follow the same method. Let's put a multiplication sign there. Erase this off. This multiplication sign. Okay, looks good. Right, so let's start. 5 divided by 8 is 0. Alright, because 1 times 8 is already 8, it's too big. So 0 times 8 is 0. Okay, so I'm left with 5. Now, how do I move on? Recall that for every whole number, I can actually put a point 0. Right? I can have as many zeros as I want at the back. Okay, so a whole number, I can put in a point 0 and it does not change the value of this. So again, I need to align my decimal points. So this decimal point goes up here. I pull down this 0. So now 50 divided by 8. 50 divided by 8 is about 6. 6 times 8, 48. Okay, so I subtract 10, 2. So I've still not reached 0 yet. So I put in another 0. I pull it down. Okay, so 20 divided by 8 is about 2, because 2 times 8 is 16. So I minus, I'm left with 4. Still not done. 0. Pull all the way down. I have 40. So now I know that 5 times 8 is 40. Okay, I ran out of space. Minus, and that will give me a 0. Okay, sorry, no space. So my final answer is 0.625. Alright, so 5 divided by 8 will actually give me 0.625. So the key here is you can keep adding zeros as many times as you want until you hit 0 right at the bottom. Okay? Now, for this redo part, this question is slightly different from what the other examples that we've seen. In the other examples, we have finally reached 0. But there will be certain cases where there is no 0. You can actually not hit 0. And so in those cases, the question will actually give you a hint, because they will actually tell you to round off to the nearest 1 decimal place. Okay, so we are going to find out how we're going to do this kind of question. So what I need you to do is copy down the question first. Everything, you need to copy it down. And then follow me as I write the solution down. So please pay careful attention to what I'm doing. Okay, because this is something very different. Okay, so let's begin. 0.8 divided by, oops, not enough space. Let me write it smaller a bit. 0.8 divided by 3. So first things first, 0 divided by 3 is 0. Decimal point follows. 8 divided by 3 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. Minus off is 2. Add a 0 here, pull it down. Now I have 20. Okay. 20 divided by 3 is actually 6. 6 times 3 is 18. Minus, and that will give me 2 again. Put the 0 here. Pull it down. This is 20 again. Again, 6 times 3 is 18. Minus, and that gives me 2. Now you should start being able to observe that there is a pattern. Okay, I'm going to keep getting 20 and it will never ever stop because I'm always getting 20. So that's the reason why the question is telling you to round off the answer to the nearest 1 decimal place. So my final answer is approximately equal to, I will never get an equal answer, I will get approximately equal. Okay, so let's round off. Nearest 1 decimal place, I circle this, underline this. So this is a 6, so I plus 1 to this. So my final answer, 0.8 divided by 3, is approximately equal to 0.3 when rounded off to the nearest 1 decimal place. Now, of course, the question can always ask you to round off to the nearest 2 or 3 decimal places. It's all up to the question. Alright, so please take note. This is something very special and something very different for division of decimals. I hope you understand. Okay, let's challenge each other. Let's try this. So now I want you to find the value of the following. I want you to find the value of 0.78 divided by 4, correct or rounded off to the nearest 2 decimal places or the nearest 100th. Pause the video, do it on your own, play the video again to check to see whether you are correct. You can pause the video now. Okay, so let's start. Let's work it out. So 0.78 divide by 4. Okay, 0.78 divide by 4. Alright. Okay, so first thing, 0 divided by 4 is 0. Then I'll move on to the next place. 7 divided by 4, there will be 1. So decimal point here, 0.1. 1 times 4 is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. Pull down the 8. 38 divided by 4 is 9. Okay. 9 times 4 is 36. So 2. I put in the 0, bring it down. So now I have 20. 20 divided by 4 is actually 5. And, oops. So for this, you actually notice that I have come to the end. So my answer is actually 0.195. Okay, so my answer is actually equal to 0.195. But because the question is asking me to round off to the nearest 2 decimal place, so let's round off. 2 decimal places here, underline. So 5, I plus 1. So then my final answer will be approximately equal to 0. So plus 1, this is actually 10. Okay, 1 and 0. So 1 plus 1 is 2 and 0. Okay, because nearest 2 decimal place, I must have 2 digits after my decimal point. Okay? So they can either ask you when there is an n or when there's no n. They can still ask you to round off. Alright. Okay, well, division is a little bit complicated, a little bit complex, so take your time to watch the video as many times as you need to. Come back to class, let's apply, let's discuss, let's crack our brains over this. So by now you should be able to divide decimals up to 2 decimal places by a 1-digit whole number. And you should be able to divide a whole number by a whole number and give the answer in decimal form. Okay, that's all folks.